Hey guys, Carl from Purple Moose Place. Today we're going to be taking a look at Skulls of Sedlec from Button Shy Games, designed by Dustin Dobson. And as normal today we're going to be doing a solo playthrough, so I will also be using the solo Monstrance expansion that's co-designed by Dustin Dobson and Mike Mullins. So let's get down and check out the playthrough, and we'll come back up here and see what I think. In the game Skulls of Sedlec, you'll be drafting skull cards, stacking those skulls into your tableau, and scoring points based on their location in your stack. Before I explain how to set up and play the game, I first want to show you all of the different skulls and how they score, because that will help you understand everything else that I explain later. So first we have peasant skulls. Peasant skulls are the easiest ones to understand because they just score 1 point wherever they are in your stack. Criminal skulls are going to score 2 points if they're adjacent to priests. And priests are these blue skulls right here. So if this skull was next to the priest or above the priest, on either side, it would score 2 points for adjacency to this priest. Priests themselves will score 2 points in any level that they're in, but only once per level. So if there are 2 priests in the same level, it only scores once. But if you can stack them above each other, they'll score 2 points per level. Royal cards are a little bit trickier. Royal cards are going to score 1 point for every royal or peasant that is below them in the stack. So you want these royals to be very high in your stack to score lots of points. The final skull in the base game is the romantic. And the romantic will score 3 points if it is touching another romantic card. If it's adjacent to another romantic, the pair will score 6 points. But any romantic that's in a pair cannot score for another pair. So the most that this romantic can score is 3 points. And again, only if it's paired with another romantic. I'm covering here because I want to show you, in my playthrough today, I'm also going to be using an expansion. And all the expansion does is add a few more cards that introduces one more skull type. I want to put this expansion in because it doesn't really change how the game plays, and it will let me show you all of the available cards there are for the game. The new skull in the expansion is called the Executioner. And the Executioner is going to score 1 point for itself, regardless of where it is in the stack, plus 1 point for every criminal that is connected to it in a row. So for example, if I have 3 criminals like this, and I put the Executioner on top of that, we score 1, 2, 3, 4 points for that chain of criminals connected to this Executioner. Now if I could connect other Executioners to that same chain, they would also score off the exact same chain. So multiple Executioners can score for the same chain of criminals if they're both connected to it. To begin setup for Skulls of Sedlec, we're going to begin by shuffling the cards. And then we're going to split these cards into a set of stacks, known as the graveyard, which is where we're going to be drafting our cards from. Today I'm going to be playing the solo version of the game, and in the solo version of the game we're going to lay these down into 4 stacks. If you were playing the multiplayer version of this game, they would instead be laid out into 6 stacks. This actually provides a nice way to get some more shuffle out of the cards if you lay them down sort of randomly into these 4 stacks. Let me just clean this up a bit. As we play the game, it's very likely that I might run out of space on camera, and in case, I will adjust the camera when I need to. So here we've got our 4 stacks set up for the graveyard. Again, in a 2 or 3 player game, or 4 player using the expansion, we would have 6 stacks, a 3x2 grid in the graveyard. So as I mentioned today, we're going to be playing the solo game. And the solo game requires that I also use this other expansion called the Monstrance expansion. What this is going to do is it's going to give me another scoring goal or condition, but it's also going to give me a feature or another structure that I need to stack skulls into. So in the solo game, I'm not just making my single stack, but I'm also making a second feature depending on a card that I draw right now. So we've got this set of cards that comes with the solo game. We're going to give them a shuffle, and then we're going to draw 2 of them, and I'll show you what this is going to do. I'm going to flip over this first one. So this is going to show me what my feature is. So in this game, I'm going to be creating the coat of arms. This purple card you see at the bottom is going to be the first card that I need to place when I'm building this feature. We'll talk about stacking rules in a minute. In addition to this extra feature, the solo game also is going to give me another scoring condition. So in this game today, we're playing with missionaries. And missionary says any priest that is on a level without a peasant does not score. But if I score a priest, it's gaining +1. So remember before I mentioned that priests score 2 points for every level that contains a priest. So in this game, if the level has a priest and a peasant, it's going to score 3 points per priest. But if there's no peasant, then that priest doesn't score at all. So in a game of Skulls of Sedlec, you're going to continue taking turns, and on your turn you have one of 2 choices. You can either dig or you can collect. To dig, it means you're going to flip over 2 cards in the graveyard, and you must choose and place one of them either in your stack or your feature. To collect, it means you can take one of the cards that is already face up and place that in your feature. These are the rules for the solo game. In the multiplayer game, things are a little bit different because in the multiplayer game, you'll actually have a hand of cards. So when you dig, you're going to flip over 2 cards, but you're going to take one into your hand rather than placing. And when you collect, you're going to take one face-up card into your hand rather than placing. That means in the multiplayer game, there's one more action you can take on your turn, and that is to play a card from your hand into the stack. Remembering that in the multiplayer game, you're only playing with a stack, but in the solo game, we'll be playing with a stack and a feature. Now, I should mention what a stack looks like. For the multiplayer game, the shape depends on the number of players. So if you're playing a 2-player game, you're going to have 4 cards on the bottom, 3 cards in the middle, and 2 cards on top. In a 3-player game, you're going to have 3 cards on the bottom, 2 in the middle, and 1 card on top. If you're using the Executioners expansion, you can play with 4 players, in which case you'll follow the same stack rules as the 3-player game. In the solo game, in addition to building my feature, which in this case is going to be the coat of arms, we're also going to build a stack from the 2-player game. So I'm going to build a stack that has 4 on the bottom, 3 in the middle, and 2 on top. When building, we need to pay attention to some rules. Whenever we have a card on the bottom row of our stack, or the purple card in my feature, I can play that as normal. So now I want to talk a little bit about stacking rules. When we place a card, if it's on the bottom of our stack or in one of these purple spaces in our feature, we can play it as normal. But if we want to stack a skull on top of another skull, it needs to be placed on top of 2 adjacent skulls. So I cannot put this directly above this set. Instead, I need to wait until there's a second card next to this one, and then I can play on top of that set. In the case of these features, you might see some rules that break this rule. So for example, in this coat of arms, once I've placed this purple card, there is no card that goes next to it. So there is no way for me to have 2 cards next to each other before building one on top. In that case, as long as it's connected to a card that's already on your feature, you can place. So for example, if I've already placed this purple card, I can then place any of these 3 cards. And likewise, if I've placed this card, I can then already place on top of it, because there is no adjacent card to support the card on top. So the game continues to play in this way until you've completed your stack. In the case of the multiplayer game, everyone has completed their stack. Or in the case of the solo game, you've completed both your stack and the coat of arms. after which complete your scoring and your final score is determined. In the solo game, you'll see on the back of the rules for the solo game, there is a list of points to compare your score against to see how well you did. So we'll come back to scoring after I've done my playthrough. But for now, let me shuffle these cards back up again, and we'll get started with the playthrough. Okay, now that we're all ready to start our playthrough, there's one thing I haven't mentioned yet, and that is the first round of the game. To start the solo game, we're going to begin with a dig action, which I mentioned before is turning over 2 cards and placing one of those cards. However, in this very first turn of the game, that first card must be placed into the feature. So in this case, it's going to be placed in the purple card space in our coat of arms. That is our only option to begin the game. So let's turn over 2 cards and see what we get. So already I'm not thrilled, but let's see what we've got. I've got a card that's got a peasant and a criminal on it. And I've got a card with a royal and a priest on it. So looking at these 2 cards, if I put this card at the bottom of my stack, this criminal will never score because the criminal needs to be adjacent to a priest, and in the bottom of a stack, that can never happen. Now priests will score on their own, regardless of where they are, 1 per level. So that's okay for him to be at the bottom. And this romantic needs to be touching another romantic to score, but if we look at our coat of arms, there's going to be 3 possible places for that to touch another card. So I'm going to start with this card, and we'll place it down here to start my coat of arms. So looking at this now, I don't want to place this one around here yet, because I want to make sure there's a space for another romantic, and I don't like that it's a bottom in my stack. So I'm going to dig again. We just took from here, so I want to try the other 2 just because there's more options. Alright, so we found another romantic, which would be nice except it's at the top of the card, and I put it here, it's got to be at the bottom, and if I put it here, it's got to be at the bottom, and if I put it here, it's also got to be at the bottom, so that doesn't help me right now. But it could be a nice card to put in a stack. This card with the Executioner is actually not a bad card because it's already connected to a criminal, and I see a criminal in this one over here. So if I can get this one on top of this one, that might be the start of a nice chain. So let's take this card and we'll put it over here. I'm going to leave it loose a little bit because I'm not sure which side of that card I'm going to build onto yet. So this might slide around a little bit as I figure out my stack, but we'll figure that out as we go. All right, so now I can either collect and take one of the face-up cards or dig again and flip over the other 2. But remembering that if I dig, I have to choose one of the cards that comes out of that dig. So actually, looking at this, if I take this card and put that here, that's actually not a bad idea. I get a point for this peasant at the bottom, which means if I place royals above later on, he'll score for that as well. I just realized I made a mistake, but we'll come back to that in a second. Having this romantic here means if I place a card next to it with a romantic on top, it'll score. Or if I put a card on top of it with a romantic on the bottom, it will also score. So that's a good place for the romantic to be. Now, let me come back to the stupid mistake I made already. This priest is fine, except my missionaries card, which I've already forgotten about and is going to kill me if I don't pay attention to, is that, again, the priest does not score if it's on a level with no peasant. And this feature and this stack don't connect. So even though this is the same level, this is completely disconnected for scoring. So this is actually going to score me 0 points at the end of the game, but I've already made that decision, so I'll stick with it. Alright, so then I'm going to dig again because I don't like this card yet. Alright. So let's dig here and here. Ooh, I like both of those cards. Alright. I'm going to start by placing this one like this. So now we have a pair of romantics. They will score 6 points at the end of the game. Again, this priest is not going to score unless I can place a a peasant next to it. So we got to pay attention to peasants moving forward. But there are 3 spaces. It has to be on a level. So there are 2 spots that could have a peasant. So let's come back to that in a minute. That said, I really like to have this skull somewhere. I'm going to place this here because that's going to add 2 more criminals to my executioner. So let's stick with that and see where that takes me next. All right. Digging again. I will flip this one. And I will flip this one. Alright, so we've got 2 royals now, which doesn't make me very happy. But we'll see how this works out. I have to place one of those 2 royal cards. Must. And I can't place anything up here yet because I don't have any support below. And I don't want to put a royal down very low. So I'm going to place this one up here. Because it's fairly high. There will only be 2 skulls above this royal. So hopefully I can score. And I need to put peasants next to these priests anyway. So if I can do that, then that will be very good for me. So let's see what happens next. I do not want to place either of those yet, so I'm going to dig again and see what happens. Okay. This is actually very nice for me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to place this one here, which will then allow me to take this one and place that there. Because what that does now is these priests touch all of those criminals. So all of those criminals are now scoring. But I need to make sure that we get at least 1 peasant here, or those aren't going to score anything for me at all. And in that case, I'm really hoping for a romantic to go right here to score on that romantic. Meaning, I don't like the cards that are showing... yes I do. Now that we've got a top, this one will go perfectly here. Because now this executioner is also touching all of those criminals, so it's going to score a lot. The royal's at the top, so it's scoring anything that's below it. I like that placement a lot. So let me go ahead and dig again. I will dig here, and I will dig here. Let's see here. I don't like that, but it's okay for right now. I'm going to place this one down here. The criminal's not going to score anything for me, but that romantic gets me some points, so I don't mind having that there. And if I do that, I'm also going to do this, which will work out nicely in 2 ways. It's going to kill this priest, because there's no peasant, but it does put a peasant with this priest. So this priest will score, and I've added 1 more skull to both executioner chains. This skull is also not going to score, but we'll see. I think that might play out okay. But I've also run out of space for my coat of arms, so I'm going to slide everything over a little bit on camera so that everything fits better. All right. So now we've got a little bit more space for our feature. So I only have 1 card left to go into the stack. And then I've got a bunch of stuff in my feature. So let's see what I can do to fix up this feature. I'm going to go digging. Get that one. That one. I really need to start paying attention to this feature, but I don't like the way this is working out. Executioners up top don't help me so much right now, but actually, if I place this one here, and then place this one here, that's actually helpful, because now I've got a peasant next to this priest. This skull is activated by that priest. This is a chain. It's a small chain, but it gets me some points. So I'm not unhappy. Plus, we've now got 2 peasants below the royal. So that will score me fairly well. Let's dig again and see what we get. Okay. Well then, I have to place one of those. Neither one is great. If I put this here, this skull is dead. I put that there, that doesn't really help. Down here, royal is really bad. The skull wouldn't score. This one also here wouldn't help me at all. So let's go back to our stack. Yeah, it's not optimal, but I will place this because I have to, and I'll put this here. The royal's going to score quite a bit. This criminal will not score. But I did just notice something. I'm going to put this one actually right here, because that's going to put this peasant the same level with that priest, so I'm going to score some points for that, and I'm not unhappy about that. So let's see what else we can do. I could put this card here. It would activate that priest because it would have a peasant next to it. But this priest and this priest would be on the same level, and I only score once per level. So let's hold off on that and come back to that if we need to. So I'm going to dig. I'll dig this, and I'll dig this. Means I have to place something. Yeah, both of those are no good. All right. Well, yeah, I don't like either of those, but I have to place one. So I've got one card that goes here and one card that goes here, and I've got to place one of these two. If I place this one, the romantic is gone forever, and I score for him. Or if I place this one, which I'm going to do, I'm only going to score 1 for that executioner because there's no criminals. But it's going to let me place this one here and score some points. That criminal is useless. So I'm going to dig again, and honestly, I'm not sure what I'm hoping for. If I could find a card that has a royal on top and a peasant on the bottom, if it exists, I don't know. But if I could find that card, that would be very helpful. So let's dig and see what we get. That's only one, that's only one. I'm going to say let's go with this one. Alright, well, this will score me a point. And nothing if I put it here. This will score me 2 points if I put it there. So clearly I'm going with this one. And now I've finished both my stack and my feature. So that's the end of the game, and we move on to scoring. To score the game, I'm actually going to use a scoring card that I've gotten for a download from pnparcade.com. I recommend, if you like this scoring card, definitely go check it out. I'm going to put it up here in the top of the screen while I start scoring. So we're going to start by scoring the royals. So I'm going to look first at the royals in the stack. I've got one royal here and one royal here. Let's start with this one. This one is going to score for every royal and peasant below it. It scores 1 point. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. This royal also scores for peasants and royals below it. 1, 2, 3. So we're at 7 points for royals in our stack. And now we're going to look at the royals in our feature. There's only one of them. Again, scoring for all royals and peasants below. 1, 2. Next, I'm going to score priests, remembering my missionaries card that says any priest on a level with no peasant doesn't score, but if there is a peasant, it scores +1. So it will score 3 points if it's on a level with a peasant. I'm going to write that down. Actually, my feature is the coat of arms. And the effect, again, is missionaries. Alright, so let's take a look at priests. Here in my stack I have 2 priests. This one has no peasant on a level, so he doesn't score. This one has 1 peasant on his level, so he's going to score 3 points. In the feature we've got 4 priests. This priest doesn't score. This priest scores 3 points. This priest doesn't score. And this priest scores 3 points, for a total 3 plus 3 equals 6 points. Taking a look at romantics, I've actually managed to get 1 set of romantics in my stack for 6 points, and I've gotten 2 sets of romantics in my feature for 12 points. Moving on to peasants, again, peasants are very easy, we just count 1 point per peasant. In my stack I've got 1, 2, 3 peasants. And in my feature I have 1, 2 peasants. Next we'll look at criminals. Criminals are scoring 2 points if adjacent to a priest. So let's start here in the stack. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 criminals, but only these 4 are touching priests. So these 3 criminals do not score, and these will each get 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8 points total for the criminals in my stack. And in my feature I've got 3, but these 2 again are not touching any priests, so this is the only one that scores, so he gets 2 points in my feature. This next shield that you see here is for the executioners, or for any expansion that you might be using at the time. So we are looking at the executioners. So first, starting in my stack, I've got 2 executioners. Both of them are connected to the same chain of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skulls. +1 for the executioner, so he scores 6 points, he scores 6 points. I get 12 points for executioners in my stack. And then over here in my feature I've got 4 executioners, but they're all separate. This is a 1 point because there's no criminal. This is 1 point because no criminal. This is 2 points because it's touching 1 criminal. And this is 2 points because it's touching 1 criminal. So 2 and 2 is 4, 5, 6 points for executioners in my feature. This next column is for special scoring goals that come from this card, but in this case my card just changed the scoring of the priests, so I don't have anything extra to write in here. So now we just need to add up everything and find out what our total score is. We start with the stack. 7 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3 plus 8 plus 12 is going to give me a total for my stack of 39 points. And then for my feature, we're going to add 2 plus 6 plus 12 plus 2 plus 2 plus 6 gets me a total of 30 from my feature for a total score of 69 points. Again, I mentioned earlier in the solo game, when we are finished, we're going to compare our score with the chart on the back of the solo rules. In this case, with 69 points, I am going to be just shy of the renowned creator. I'm scoring as a macabre builder for my game. Alright, while we're down here, let's take a look at the components. I'm going to start with the wallet because, as every button shy game tends to do, this game comes in a wallet. At first glance it doesn't look all that special, but I really do like the font that they've chosen. I like that this little O, they put a bone underneath, so it kind of looks like a skull and crossbones. It's very easy to read, it's very big and bold, and you see it from far away very easily. So I do like that. I like the font that was chosen. I like the color of the wallet, actually. You look at it at first glance, it's just sort of like a dark black gray, but it's really got this sort of speckled pattern to it. It looks a lot nicer than I thought at first glance. I actually really like this wallet now that I've had it in my collection for a little while. And it's not as boring as I originally thought it looked at first glance. It is a very nice, very striking wallet, and it fits the game very well. Aside from the wallet, all that's in this game is cards, and you've seen them here in front of you the whole time. I really love the stylized depiction of these skulls. The colors really pop, very, very nice, high contrast colors. The symbols are very nicely designed, and it really does match the themed skulls very, very well. The back of the card is representative of the graveyard that you're digging in, so it's kind of got this stone look, like a gravestone or a headstone in a grave. And I do like this, but I do think maybe it could have been a little bit more stylized on the back. If maybe it was a mound of dirt with some stone on it, or if there was some text or something, a border around it. It just looks a little bit bland to me, but it does fit thematically. And again, the front side of the cards is very, very well done. As for the solo mode, you get these double-sided cards. I like the font that's been chosen for this game, and the font is the same on these cards, and it looks great. These skulls in the corners don't really have any use, but they look cool. I like having them there. Again, it's got that sort of stone look to it, which is nice. The features are all very unique. I'll pull in a few more and show you now. Coat of arms. Here's a pier. There's the monstrance itself. An arch. A chandelier. A chalice. They're very unique shapes, and they're very clear and very easy to understand. And there's actually a little bit of description below. This game is actually based on an ossuary in an actual place called Sedlec, where a blind monk historically actually dug up these skulls and built a church, making these different shapes and stacks with the skulls that he dug up. So it does have some historical connection, and a lot of the information about the blind monk and the ossuary itself is written here as a historical context, and I think that's a really, really cool thing to have on the cards, because it gives some extra thematic kick to the game. So I'm happy to see that there. Other than that, there aren't really any components to the game besides the cards and the wallet. So meet me back up top and we'll talk about how I think about the game and the solo mode and the expansion and just sort of the whole thing in general. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the playthrough. Now, if you know me at all, if you've seen any of my videos before, you know I don't bury the lead, and I'm going to come out right now and say I really enjoyed this game. This is easily in the top 5 button shot games for me, and probably in my top 3. Which is kind of interesting, because at first I was gonna miss out on this game. I saw it originally, I saw the theme, I wasn't really intrigued too much by the theme originally, but I played another game from Button Shy called Wonder Tales, which is another tableau building game that scores somewhat similarly to this game, in which cards are placed next to other cards and score based on location and adjacency. And I started looking for other games that were sort of like that, and I found Skulls, and at the time I found a print and play for the prototype version back from when it was on Kickstarter, so I printed it out and I tried it out, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. So I made it a very high priority to pick up the game when I could get a physical copy of the game, and now I'm here sharing it with you. So now that I've sort of spoiled things and let you know that I really enjoy this game, let's talk a little bit about why I enjoy this game. There are 2 pieces to this game. There's the card drafting aspect, and there's also the tableau building aspect. And I enjoy both of these. I've actually had a chance to play this game, not only solo, but I've played it with 2 players and with 3 players, and I really like it at all player counts. It is a bit different game in the solo game versus the multiplayer game, but the difference is mostly sort of in the drafting and how the cards are used. Let me explain a little bit further. So in the multiplayer game, I mentioned in the setup that when you're playing the multiplayer game, you're drafting cards into your hand. So you're drafting cards into your hand, and then on a following turn, you can then play them into your stack. What this means is that you can sort of plan ahead, right? If I see a card that I really like, but I can't use it now, I can take it anyway, because I don't have to worry about using it until I place it later on a following turn further on. What this also means is that if I want to, I also have the ability to draft cards into my hand that basically just prevent the other player from getting that card. So I can actually take a card, sort of a hate draft, I don't want to use that word, but it's sort of hate drafting. I can take the card to prevent my opponent from getting that card. And that's another interesting twist to the game. So it's not only about building my tableau, but it's also about getting the cards I need and preventing my opponent from getting the cards they need. In the solo game, you don't really have that, right? Because as soon as I turn over a card in a dig, I have to place one of those into my tableau. Or if I collect the card, meaning I take one of the face-up cards, again, I also have to immediately place that in a stack or a feature. Now I do have an option whether it goes in a stack or the feature, so I have a little bit more option about where the card gets placed, which is helpful. But it really adds sort of this unique push your luck element to the solo game. Do I use a card that I see face up that I know may not be the best but isn't going to be horrible? Or do I push my luck and flip over 2 more cards, knowing that I'm going to have to place one of those 2 cards, have no choice about it, but I'm going to have to place one of those 2 cards somewhere in my stack or in my feature. So it's a nice sort of mitigation of risk. Do I take a card that's safe, that might not score a lot, or do I push my luck in the hopes that I get something really good with the chance that I get something even worse than what's already shown? I really like that in the solo game. Now, about the tableau building, I really love this style of game. It becomes clearer and clearer the more I play games from Buttonshy mostly, but from all kinds of different companies now. There's a lot of this adjacency scoring or location placement scoring in games recently, and I really like that. As I mentioned earlier in this, Wonder Tales is a great one. I'll hopefully be doing a video for that not too far off. You just saw this in Circle of Wagons that I just did, and Sprawlopolis. Those are also placement-based and adjacency-based scoring. It comes up in lots of different games, and I really, really enjoy it, and I like the way it works here. Because of the way that things stack on angles, or stack differently in the solo player features, it's not just about 90-degree adjacency. So for example, when I'm stacking in that pyramid, I've got 2 cards on the bottom that are adjacent to a card on the top. And at the same time, that card on the bottom has 2 cards that are adjacent to it on top. So you get this unique sort of semi-diagonal. It's not corner to corner, it's still touching, but you get this sort of semi-diagonal adjacency that I really like. And some of the other placement rules about specific cards that it needs to be, or sets of pairs, or in the same level as, or scored below, these are kind of unique twists on this adjacency or placement-based scoring, and I really like that. Continuing to talk about scoring in the solo game, it is almost a beat your high score game, which I don't usually like in solo games, but this does give you a score, or at least a leveling of score, so that you can see how well you did. It's not just how well did I do against how I did last time. It's how well I did based on sort of a goal scoring set or level. I like that. But more than that, because this solo expansion comes with the 6 different cards, with a different feature on one side and a different sort of score rule, it's not necessarily a goal. It's a condition, or it's a change in scoring, or it's some specific thing that changes up that game in some unique way. And there are 6 of those, right? So I can have, for each scoring condition or each scoring rule change, I can have 5 different features. And vice versa, for each feature I can have 5 different scoring rule changes. So if my math isn't off, I'm getting 30 different combinations of that out of this expansion. So I have 30 different ways that I can play the game and try and hit that sort of target score range. And that makes things a lot more interesting than just a normal beat your own high score. And I like that a lot. I've played this game a lot, and I will continue to play this game a lot. And you'll see in this playthrough I included the Executioners expansion. I'm going to continue to put that in there, and I don't see myself ever taking that out. It doesn't make the game any more difficult. It adds one more unique scoring rule. But beyond that, it does one more thing that I really, really like. In that, in the base game, if you use only the base game, in the solo game, you're going to use every single card in the deck. And what that means is if you've played this game enough, you sort of have an idea of what cards are in there, and you start expecting certain cards to come out when you're building your feature and when you're building your stack. So you can think, well, I know that card's in there, so I'm going to wait until it comes out to put that so that my scoring works out better. But when you add the expansion, you're still building the same size stack and the same size feature. So there's extra cards in the deck. So what that means is every game, some cards are not coming out. And what that means is I'm never sure what cards are going to come out. So I can't really plan for anything. I can hope for something. And I was talking about that push your luck mitigation before. This really adds to that, right? I think that this could be coming out, but I'm not sure because there's other cards that might come out instead, and that card might not ever come out, and I really, really, really like that. From what I understand, there will be more expansions, because as we see with the Executioners, it's as simple as adding a new scoring condition and putting in some cards. You don't want to throw off the balance, of course, but I'm sure the designer, this is very well designed. I'm sure they're putting that into consideration every time they do this. I'm pretty sure there's the next expansion coming out is Guards. I don't really know anything about how they score or what they do, but I'm sure there will be more coming, more content for this game. It seems to be well loved, and I love it a lot. I will continue to play this game, and anything else that comes out, I'd be more than happy to share with everyone out there. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to like and subscribe below if you enjoyed this video.